Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Geek Nation Tours, and by the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everybody for your continued support. We really appreciate it. Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 245. Stand 2 games. With hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs and Mike Whittaker, and guest Adrian McWalter from Stand 2 Games. This show was recorded between the 14th and the 28th of March, 2018. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. As always, my name is Neil Shuck, and on this show I am once again joined by the Welsh wizard himself. It is Mr. Michael Hobbs. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Neil. Hello, one and all. Hello, Meeps. How's life?
How's life with you?
Life is fine.
Have you dug yourself out now?
Well, the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gone ages ago. Turned to wet stuff.
Yes.
And flowed down the valley.
And of course, we are joined as well by the bard of the party, and we all know, of course, having watched certain YouTube series, what happens to bards in adventuring parties.
We know. Have we? What you get up to at night watching YouTube, mate, is up to you.
Don't think that. Oh, which one is it? Is it the crikey, what is it? I'm trying to think which one it is, but it's the one where they end up. They're in a fight in a village, and the bard keeps getting killed, and in the normal ways that, your character gets killed, so all of a sudden, this other character comes up, to the party, whereas it got to the point where the bard kept getting killed during a combat, and they got to the point where, the main reason most of the party escaped from being killed was they hid behind the pile of bards. Does that ring a bell with anybody?
Not a sausage, mate.
No.
Not a sausage, mate. You
Right.
are speaking into the void.
Yeah, you sure this isn't some sort of lucid dream maybe you're having?
Given my sleep patterns over recent months, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever.
Yeah. It sounds like a cry for help to me.
Anyway, yes, where were we? Oh yeah, bards. Mr. Whittaker, hello, mate.
Hello.
How you doing? You all right?
I'm confused now. After that introduction-ish thing.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm no longer knee-deep in builders. I am having knee-deep in dust.
Dust?
Yeah, the builders didn't remember to close the workshop storeroom door on a couple of occasions, and most of my shelves of stuff, really useful boxes, are about an inch thick in builder's dust.
Mm.
So I've had a day of wiping down shelves and moving stuff.
Yes, but you now have an extension in place, and your own resident gaming company.
And a sign, as you may have noticed.
Indeed.
Yes, I have indeed. For those who haven't been following the subtle hints, or alternatively been talking to their favourite gaming supplier.
I'm sorry, subtle.
Ruben and PE2 Collectibles are now renting 2/3 of our outbuildings as their new distribution warehouse. So I literally have a war games shop in my back garden. Sorry, no, I have a war games distributor in my back garden. We failed to get planning permission for it to be a shop, so you can't come up and buy things. But he at least now is not trying to store the entirety of Warlord's output in his spare bedroom, or at least that's apparently what it felt like.
Excellent stuff.
It's fabulous, actually. He's well chuffed. I'm well chuffed because I now have an office that isn't in the house, which means that when I start the new job in April, I don't have to work in the house, which is always conducive to getting more done.
Oh, you have a new job?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, I do. Which is sadly working from home. Grief, sadness, and sorrow.
Yeah, it's great, mate. You love working from home.
Well, I used to do it. When I used to work for crickinfo.com, I worked from home for about a decade. The trick is, as ever, don't do it in the house if you can possibly avoid it, if you can get a possibly garden office. So you actually do have to leave home to go to work.
I just find to turn off my PC when that's it.
Yeah, it depends. But yeah, fundamentally, I start mid-April, which would be good.
Cool. Excellent stuff. Well, here we are again for another episode on this particular show. Well, for the main part of the show, we are going to be chatting with Adrian McWalter from Stand 2 Games. We're going to be catching up with him and what's going on with their over the hills and forager go to America, for want of a better description.
Five go mad in West Virginia?
Something like that. So yeah, we'll be catching up later with Aid and everything that's been happening with Stand 2 Games in the last year. But before we do that...
Oh, could I just jump in there?
Go on.
I need to make an apology.
Really?
A retraction. On the last podcast where we all spoke, which was 2 podcasts ago, I was spouting off about Mr. Derek Hodge telling us all about these nail transfers.
Yes.
And how wonderful they are. Well, apparently the idea didn't come from Derek. It came from Ian Duff on the Gaslands Facebook group.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So I want to say sorry, Ian. I didn't know it was you. I thought it was Derek. And Derek said,
still, rocking good idea.
Yeah, it's a brilliant idea. So thank you, Ian. And thank you, Derek, for letting me know about him. Here ends the apology.
Cool. And and as ever, I think we before we go any further, we need to give a shout out to a couple of listeners. First off, to Mr. Aid Deacon. I caught up with Aid. I managed to catch up with Aid at last weekend, and good to see you doing well, mate. Keep taking the tablets, but no, it's really good to see you recovering well. And the other, also a shout out to our very good friend and listener, the Cranky Lawyer. Thinking of you, mate.
Yeah, I do think that me, Rich Clark, and Jim Iverson almost killed off Aid because we went out for a curry and a beer, and then the day after he wasn't very well again. And he only had 2 pints.
So he said. You led him astray, mate. You led him astray.
Yeah. Right. Who'd have thought going out for curry a couple of weeks after open heart surgery would be such a bad idea.
Who'd have think, indeed. Yeah. Right, on that note, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back...
When my friend Trev had a heart attack, they made him swear off bacon butties. He was most put out.
I think I'd rather die.
We'll see in a second.
I don't like it, Sergeant. Me neither, sir. Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad. Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir. How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant? 6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it Hi go, you go, sir. Hi go, you go. Good grief. And they don't like it, sir. No. No, not like it. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does. Well, that's all very well, sir, cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that. What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time. Oh, Lord, sir, lummy. Well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, hi go, you go, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir. Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of I go, you go systems? Iron Bean Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield. Two fat lardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
What have we been playing? What have we been buying? We might even have painted something. The Meeples and Miniatures crew reveal all. It's that time of the show where we find out everything we've been up to in our hobby over the past couple of weeks or so since we last updated ourselves, and actually we've got most of the month to catch up on, especially with the fact that our show was most rudely taken over by Two Fat Lardies last time round, and we didn't actually get a chance to do this.
No.
You say like it's somehow surprising.
Oh no, it was completely predictable. It was just one of those things.
It's always going to happen, wasn't it?
Indeed.
So, get yourself a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Slice of cake. This could be a long one. Again. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start off with what we've been playing, shall we?
Easy.
Shall I start?
Oh, go on then.
Okay.
Whilst you start, I'm going to go and make myself a three-course dinner because you've gone for ages.
Oh, thanks.
You're playing far too many games.
Neil, you game 3 times a week at least, so...
Yeah. And you go to events.
It has been.
Actually, before we start, Neil, we forgot to say in the opener, Akichiwa O Shogun-san.
No, I didn't quite get the Shogun prize, but I did do a lot better than I expected.
Okay.
I'll tell you about it shortly. Okay. Right. Interestingly, yeah, as you say, definitely playing between 2 and 3 times a week. Recently, it's been reduced a bit because I have been busy, especially in the last couple of weeks. I started taking time out from gaming simply because I was desperately trying to finish making and painting scenery. Because I had promised Mr. Kieran Byrne, hello Kieran, that I would do a terrain table for an event that happened last weekend. And as with all these things, it got a bit close. Like I was just finishing off the last things the night before. It wasn't quite as bad as the varnish still drying on the figures. As I drove up towards Nottingham, but it wasn't far off.
Never done that, ever.
Right, yeah.
Never been sat in the workshop door spray painting English Civil War figures at 6 a.m.
Okay, so it seems that gaming with Dave, my other mate Dave, and Rich has entered into a predictable cycle. We are tending to play 4 different games at the moment. That being Dungeon Saga, Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition, Imperial Assault, and Conan. And we're kind of alternating it week to week what we're doing. Okay, because there were kind of 4 games. We said, okay, let's concentrate on a few games. And then on the odd occasion, we'll go, okay, we're a bit fed up, we'll play a board game. So these last few weeks, we've been doing all those. Only discovered this week that we've been playing Mansions of Madness wrong.
Yeah, fires.
Fire, yes. Apparently, we've been a bit, what's the phrase? Over enthusiastic.
Yeah. Yes. With your arson.
Yes.
You're a bunch of closet pyromaniacs. Is that what you're telling us?
Something like that, yeah. Yes. So basically, I mean, people who play Fantasy Flight games will know how carefully their rules are worded. Okay. And thinking that you've read a rule in a particular way will completely change the entirety. So, we thought, or correction, we'd been told by, hi, my other mate Dave, that he said, right, okay, this is the way fire works. So, wherever you get fire, when the fire spreads, it spreads to every adjacent space. Okay. That's not what it says in the rules. It says it spreads to an adjacent space. Okay. And the other thing, if you bother to...
Rather an important distinction.
Yes. And the other thing is, if you bother to happen to read the FAQ, which, yeah, because the great thing with Fantasy Flight is that for all their stuff, all their rules and the FAQs and everything is all online and fully available to download for free. That is a really good thing. And they support their games really well, but you just got to be bothered to actually read them. And there is one important question in the FAQ. The question is, can fire spread through walls?
Is the answer no?
The answer is no. Which kind of puts a bit...
sense.
Well, yeah, but it also kind of completely changes. I mean, basically, we've been playing fire that unless you put a fire out within a turn of a fire starting, the entire board is going to be on fire in like 3 turns. Because the fire, it's just this exponential spread, and it just gets out of hand very, very quickly. And as it turns out, we've been playing it completely wrong. So fires will be far more manageable in future, but far less fun.
And did you find any rules for investigators attacking each other?
Strangely, no.
Okay.
Strange.
Obviously, it's not that frequently asked a question.
It is what I play.
Yes, indeed. Anyway, but Mansions of Madness continues to be continues to be a game that keeps on giving. Really enjoying that. We played 2 new scenarios in that over the last few weeks. Fabulous. Coming on playing Legends of the Alliance, which is the app-driven version of Imperial Assault. That's very good. That does change how you play the game, and really, that's very impressed with that. Okay, we played a couple of games of Dungeon Saga, and apparently because I was busy painting scenery, they played a game of Dungeon Saga without me last week, and managed to complete the scenario that they couldn't complete with me.
Did they have to open any doors?
Well, apparently, if you follow my mate Dave on Twitter, his quote was, "Oh, we managed it first time. Spot the weak link. ... Anyway, but Dungeon Saga again. It's a dungeon bash race game. We're still enjoying it. But interestingly, it doesn't scratch the itch quite the same as something like, I don't know, one of the Dungeons and Dragons board games. So, funny enough, we've been chatting recently about maybe going back and playing one of those as well. But Dungeon Saga, yeah, pretty good. Anyway, other than that, 2 other games I played this month. First off, even before it was released, got in 3 games of Star Wars Legion. So a huge thank you has to go to Ian Mann at Balls and Swords Hobbies in Derby, who invited me over on the first evening that they had the demo copy available and painted in the shop, for me and, Dave and my other mate Dave went over. I ended up playing a game against Luffy, and shock horror, Luffy thought it was a good game. And then, really? Yeah, he said, "Oh, this is interesting." No, I didn't take Dave to be a Star Wars fan, but then at the same time, maybe he was commenting on the game as opposed to it being Star Wars. Either way around. Anyway, then got to play a second demo game at Battlefield Hobbies on the Saturday, went over with Josh, and then got to play it on the following Friday as well. And when we played it on the following Friday, we actually played it with the full set of rules as opposed to the Learn to Play guide. One thing a lot of people have asked me what I thought of what I think of Star Wars Legion. The game it most reminds me of at the moment is Bolt Action, but actually that's in a good way, as opposed to because actually from a mechanics point of view, that works. But it's when you've got a game that isn't trying to, it's being sci-fi and it's not trying to replicate World War II. And that was funny enough a discussion I ended up having.
Doing a considerably better job of it than a certain Warlord game by any chance.
Well, yeah, possibly. Mechanically, in some aspects of what it was, it reminded me, the game it reminded me most of was Bolt Action. But with a few extra bells and whistles, which are actually positive additions. The thing that frustrated me is that, you know how in a lot of Fantasy Flight games, and obviously you'll know this more than you, Mr. Whittaker, because you don't play new games, do you?
Oh, there's no need for that.
Wait, just wait.
Right. Okay. You know how Fantasy Flight over recent years have very much gone the case of, okay, you basically have two books in your box when you get your box. You have the Learn to Play guide, and then you have the rules reference.
Yeah.
So the first rule, the Learn to Play, is almost like a simplified version of the game. So you have to Learn to Play, and then it kind of goes, right, and at the end of that, it goes, right, okay, well, then these are the rest of the rules. So they kind of give you a cut down version of the rules for your first game. Yeah?
Yep.
Right.
With you.
Okay.
As they do with Imperial Assault, which I have played.
Indeed. Right. I think for Legion, that does the game a huge disservice. Simply because one of the key factors in Legion is the use of suppression. And that is only introduced as part of the advanced game. From a Lardy point of view, think of it as playing Sharp Practice or Chain of Command without shock. It's that fundamental.
Yeah.
It's that fundamental a mechanic because it controls morale. And controlling the suppression that each of your troops has. Or it's like pinning in Bolt Action.
Yeah.
And again, it's a similar sort of thing. So, it controls morale and it potentially controls how well your troops activate every turn. And also there are actions that then revolve around the maintenance of suppression. And it could be a case of actually what ends up happening is that units do not activate it. Well, when they activate in the turn, they do nothing more than remove suppression, simply because
it's a slightly micro version of the way that wavering units in most of the Dan Mersey rules can get to the stage where basically they go, I unwaver, I get twatted again, I waver again.
Yes. But as I say, I think in this particular instance that the learn to play rules are perfectly fine,
But
yes, are perfectly fine. But if you play them, you kind of think, well, okay, that's a game where you're moving miniatures around and rolling dice and shooting at people. And it's okay. There's a few bits and pieces in, but the game is so much better than that. And I know people said, okay, give us a full review, and we will in due course. But yeah, the game is so much better than what he presented in the Learn to Play rules. So actually having then played. Basically, we rocked up on a Friday night. We were going to do something else, and Nobby at Battlefield turned around and went, "Oh, there's no one playing on the Legion table. Do you want to have a go on that?" I went, "Yeah, go on then." And so basically we ended up playing a 500-point game on a 3x3 table with a full set of single box, but with loads of add-ons and various other bits and pieces. And yeah, really nice game. Lots, there really are lots to it. So I'm looking forward to playing a lot more Star Wars Legions. And finally, I played on Saturday. I went to the Warring States 2 event at Warlord Games, put on by the guys from Infamous Gaming, and played a campaign day of Test of Honor. First time I played Test of Honor for a while, and again reminded just how good a game it is. Played 4 games of that with the day with four great opponents. Had an absolute blast. Brilliant day. Really enjoyed it.
And how many games did you win?
I won 3 games and drew the last one against somebody. And
Wow.
the last, I was in shock. It has to be said. Yes, having won the 3rd game, I think I tweeted, I think I need to go lie down for a while. But yeah, to be fair, although apparently at Warring States 1. For Warring States 2, the final table was known as the Neil Shook table of results. Since apparently for Warring States 1, I was the only one that asked what the final standings were. hang
Really?
my head. You really? I was quite surprised, but hang my head in shame. Because ultimately, it's a campaign day. It's not a tournament, so it's not about who gets first or second. It's about having fun. Admittedly, I refer. There is that little bit inside of me that things like Lieutenant War from Next Generation Star Trek.
Yeah, I didn't really watch it that much.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, there's a certain quote.
Klingon, wasn't he?
It's Klingon, yeah, but he comes out and says, "If winning isn't important, why keep score?"
Can't really argue with that.
No.
And it's not about the score, but I must admit, I do have a passing curiosity. And anyway, great day playing 4 games of Test of Honor. Reminded again of actually really enjoy it, especially once you start getting into get beyond the initial rules and get into everything they've released since, and the additional rules and the FAQ and the rules they've released in Darkness and Deceit and all that. We were playing with all those. Yeah, and you start really getting a handle on what a fun game it is. Really enjoyed it. That was me. So it didn't take long.
Awesome.
No. Go on, Mike. You can tell them what new game you've been playing.
Yeah. So, what have I played? Not a great deal. We've had a couple of more games of Gaslands down the club, which everyone seems to be loving, which have been an absolute riot, as you may have seen from some of the photos I put on Twitter. And I've been playing Pikeman's Lament.
Oh, wow.
That's the new Dan Mersey.
That's the new Dan Mersey. And I have to say, and this is not just because I completely cleaned Carl's clock twice in about an hour and a half, it feels the best application of that cool rule system of anything of his I've played.
Oh, he's using some of the mechanics from Lion Rampant, isn't he?
Lion Rampant, everything else, yeah. Basically, units come in 12s or 6s. You roll 12 dice till you're down a half strength, then you roll 6 dice. Everything has move activation numbers, morale, shoot activation, attack activation, all the usual. It's pretty much with the usual issue that it's got, there's half a dozen little detail rule differences that you will fall over if you're used to one of the other games in the set, but it's really fast to pick up, and with your sort of typical ECW warband size. I mean, I was literally playing with standard pike, 2 sleeves of shot, some commanded shot skirmishers, and a bunch of gallopers, and really easy to pick up, great fun to play, and seems to work for the period.
Excellent.
Well happy with it. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, cool.
He did do a very good interview with Henry, a Patreon interview, which was very interesting.
Yeah, I have it bookmarked to listen to, but I haven't had time lately. So
No, I must admit, I've not listened to that one myself yet.
yeah.
Yeah,
Despite
it's very good.
Despite backing Henry, I'm a little bit behind on his podcasts.
Yeah.
Mostly because the only time currently I get to listen is while I'm falling asleep, and I feel that's unfair on good quality podcasts. But yeah, Piper's Lament, good fun. If you want what's the word? A band, and war band's the wrong word for ECW, but you know what I mean. That sort of me Lord of Garth's band kind of thing. Level of it's typical Dan Mersey. It's 12, 24, 36, 40, 50 figures. You need 12 dice, you need a ruler, you need the rules, and they've finally just appeared on Amazon on Kindle for those who want the PDF version. Typical Osprey book, typical Osprey price, typical Dan Mersey good fun. We also had, and I think this has happened since we last spoke, had the finale of the Direwolf Rampant Game of Thrones campaign.
Oh, yes.
Well,
how are you? Yes, how are you, Lord Stanley?
I was suffered somewhat from the fact that the non-Lannister alliance, which is about the best way of describing them, couldn't control one of its members, who decided that the best way of solving the problem was to basically attack me anyway. So at this point, the Night's Watch took somewhat of a huff and joined the Lannisters, and still lost.
Oops.
It's really strange. For all that they are almost the same mechanism, I cannot get my head round how to play a mixed force of infantry and cavalry, some of which shoot, some of which melee, with Direwolf Rampant, Dragon Rampant, Lion Rampant. Give me 2 sleeves of shot, standard pikes, some gallopers, and it all just works. I have no idea. I am at a loss. I cannot explain. Clearly, I'm just more suited to being an English Civil War royalist infantry captain commander. These things are sent to puzzle us.
Indeed.
And there you go. That's me.
Indeed. Right. Okay. Well, Mr. Hobbs.
I haven't got much. I haven't played that much recently. Work has just been work again. So I had a couple of games of Lord of the Rings Living Card Game with Mark. We've sort of been playing around a little. Well, we've been doing the first couple of scenarios in the core game. So we've been doing that. I had a game of the fantasy game, which is really interesting. I played with a young guy from Twitter who's come to OML for the first time, Johan Davis John.
Yes.
He couldn't get in to play the game at OML, so I said, well, because you live local, why don't we meet up at Firestorm? So we did, and had a great game. He's young guy. I think he's in his early 20s. He's doing game design in university. He is a huge fan of Sharp Practice, and my God, the guy is switched on. He really just picks up rules and understands them. And I really enjoyed playing that game with him because I learned an awful lot of how people see rules. So that was excellent. So that's good. So thank you, Ewan. I had a game of Heroes of Blackreach, which is the Devil Pig 40k version of Heroes of Normandy. Because I backed the all-in pledge for that, completely forgetting that they had this thing called Drop Zone, which turned up, and it's basically a standalone demo game with a couple of forces, a little poster of the map, the rules, everything you need, other than 2 dice. So me and Mark played that, and it was excellent. Really, really good little game. It just captured 40k properly. You had orcs being rampaging in large numbers and marines in very small numbers, but hard as nails. And use of suppression was massive in the game, more than any other game of Heroes of Normandy I've ever played. Suppression in this really was important. We played that a couple of times. It was excellent. So I'm really looking forward to that tuning up now. The full game should be with me next month. And finally, I picked up, I was wandering around Firestorm one day, and I noticed they had a copy of Warhammer Quest by Fantasy Flight.
Now, yeah, this is something that intrigued me when I saw you were playing it. Because obviously the one thing is that this is a game that isn't on general sale anymore since Fantasy Flight ended their association with Games Workshop.
Mm.
But I think this is something that passed me by, and I saw you saw it, and I kind of went, "Ooh, what's that?" Ooh.
All I would say is that you can get it on eBay for about 20 or 30 quid.
Yeah.
Buy it. Me and Mark had a game of that. It's really clever. I think it came out originally about the same time as Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It's a similar, sort of dungeon crawly. There's locations you have to go through in a scenario. There's 6 scenarios. There's 4 characters in there, but the locations are all random when you play a scenario, so the locations will always be different. They got a really clever mechanic for how the game plays out, because you've got events taking place at certain points during the scenario. It's a very, very clever mechanic on it. You basically, there's sort of 4 actions that you can take, and each of the 4 characters have got these 4 actions, which are aid, attack, rest, and investigate.
Are they on cards?
Yeah, they're a card. So you've got these 4 cards in front of you, and at the beginning of the turn, you get 2 phases, shall we say? So in each turn, you do one of these actions. You then tip it. Your mate goes, because it's cooperative. But it's really clever. It's a really, really clever game, and I can see loads of replaying it because all the characters are different. They've also got a nice campaign system in there where as you play a game, you grab experience, which means that the 4 cards that you've got, you can swap them out to more to better versions of the cards. So your characters progress, and they can capture items which they can then carry forward. They can increase their experience. It's excellent. And for 6, I know there's only 6 scenarios in the game, which is a shame. But there's a few on Board Game Geek that people have done. But it really surprised me. And it's another living card game, which is completely different to anything else.
Someone said they described it as the fantasy version of Death Angel.
I haven't played Death Angel, so I don't know about that. I've got Death Angel, which is now Death Angel, for those who don't know, was Space Hulk the card game. And people go, how the heck can you make Space Hulk into a card game? But believe me, you can. I mean, it's brutal, but that's a really good cooperative experience. And as I say, when it said, oh, hang on, there's a
there's a Warhammer version of it. That really has me intrigued, because I think Death Angel's great, and if you've got like a fantasy version which uses similar mechanics, I'd definitely be up for it. So kind of, I think I want to see if I can get hold of a copy of that from somewhere.
Yeah, I mean they only released the core box, and there's 2 extra player expansions, which are going for stupid money.
Yes, I could imagine. Yeah,
but there's a lot of replay in that core box.
Mm.
So
cool.
Yeah, definitely worth picking up.
Cool.
And that's all I've been playing.
Wow, brilliant. Okay, so that's what we've played. How about what we've been painting? What we've been building? What's been on the workbench?
Dust.
Dust. Fair enough.
Yeah, but you have got a brand new office now, Mike. So that's what.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's currently full of stuff that's been removed from the storeroom while I dust off the shelves and eat.
Yeah, 1-to-1 scale dust. I like it. Yeah, right. Well, I've spent the month as aforementioned for the Warring States Battle Day. I'd agreed to put on a terrain table. Now, last month I painted Warband last month, so this month it was all about building the terrain. Originally I was going to build a village, and then kind of got to the point where thinking, well, everybody's going to just do a village. I'd like to do something different. And then Sarissa the Bounders and Warlord previewed that actually, they've just released it. They're doing a Sohai temple, an enclosed temple, which is I think the full thing's about 140 quid or something. Very nice, but they have this enclosed temple, and I looked at it and went, "Oh, that looks interesting." Because I don't know if you remember when we had Andy Hobday on the show. And we did happen to talk a little bit about Test of Honor. He was talking about a campaign they were releasing for the spring, based around a Buddhist temple, and that's what this release they were doing. But I was kind of inspired by that and thought, I know, let's do a temple. So I scouted around and ended up buying walls from TT Combat, Troll Trader, because they seem to be the best bang for your buck all ways around, and especially when you're having to buy 4 feet of walls plus corners and gates. They seem to be the best all round, not just for price, but also for what you got, how much you got, and the height of the walls, etc. So I did that. So bought those, made those, painted those. I painted a couple the Sarissa Temple and Shrine, Temple Bell and Shrine, and then a few other bits and pieces. And I was going to paint another couple of buildings, and then kind of went, this really does cry out for a pagoda. So I had a look at the Sarissa Pagoda, and it's a really nice model, but the interesting thing was it's only 8 inches square, and that's actually to the edge of the roof. Actually, the center core of the Sarissa Pagoda isn't that big, and to be honest, I wanted something a bit bigger. Now the Troll Trader one is 1 foot square.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I went, "Oh, that's nice." But
is it big, sir? Is it? Ooh, sir.
Yeah, but the base model only comes with 2 tiers as opposed to 3, so he had to buy another tier for it. So I went, "Okay, fine, I'll do a pagoda." So I ordered the pagoda, and then it snowed. Of course, the western part of the country got the brunt of the snow, didn't it? as Mr. Hobbs will testify. I mean, okay, there was the Beast of the East bit, but actually, especially the second lot of snow we had, the western half of the country got the worst of it. Troll Trader, of course, are based in Cornwall. 2 weeks after I'd ordered the pagoda, which was basically the weekend before Warring States, there was still no sign of it. And I'd emailed them and said, is it likely to turn up? And they kind of went, it's with the post office, but they got a bit of a backlog because of the snow. I said, well, I was hoping to kind of like make it this weekend. And they went, it might get to you. So I ended up starting for like plan C or D or what have you, because it didn't turn up at the weekend. And I thought, okay, before I start painting in earnest, I'll give it another 24 hours. And I'm glad I did, because the pagoda turned up, which meant that I only had, say, like 3 days to build it and paint it. And it is a big building. It is as big as I hoped, and took as long to construct and paint as I'd feared. So it really was kind of head down and go for 3 nights to get it sorted. But it looked nice. I was really pleased with it. And anyway, so no miniature painting has been done over the last few weeks, but got lots of scenery done. And that's been quite satisfying in itself.
And it looked great. I mean, you showed that picture on Twitter of the whole.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
Yeah,
yeah, it did look nice. I mean, the one downside was, unfortunately, I didn't get to play in it on the day. Apparently, the people who did really enjoyed it. However, the advantage is, of course, that I do have the layout. Interestingly, what I ended up doing, because I was thinking, what am I going to use as the base? And I bought, oh crikey, I forgot the company now. One of the European companies that produce battle mats had an offer, and they produced double-sided vinyl mats. So I got one.
That was deep cut, wasn't it?
No, it's not deep cut. It's something like EU Gamer or something like that. That's not the name of the company. I'll have to correct it later. But they produced double-sided vinyl mats. So I got one which was basically grass on one side, or fields on one side for Tester 1, and the other side I got it as a cobbled area, which was for things like, obviously, for like Empire of the Dead and stuff like that. But again, it worked just as well. Okay, don't look too closely at the at the odd manhole cover, but it worked quite nicely as like basically a very large cobbled courtyard, and that was ideal. So yeah, considering the very first time that I actually assembled the whole thing, having painted it all, was actually on the day when I got there, all the maths worked out, and everything fitted. So it was like, phew. But no, I really enjoyed it. So I basically spent the month making scenery and having a while every time.
Excellent. Guess what I've been doing?
Painting elves.
Yeah. Well, I painted up another 24 to 25 Gladrian elves. So I used some of the plastics and some of the metals for Lord of the Rings.
Cool.
Then I had a painting order arrive from Gareth at ADC, and I sent him off some of the I sent all of the Conan picks for him to paint, and they all came back. So I based those up, and they look jolly good. So thank you, Gareth, for doing those. So I got a bit distracted with Conan again, and I started painting up the guards.
Oh, the Bossonians.
Yeah. So I've done 10 of them. I got another 5 3/4 finished.
Yeah, that was quite an unusual colour scheme you used for those. What made you choose kind of greenish as opposed to more kind of, I suppose, the more traditional artwork that the kind of red that they use on the artwork? Was it just a case of wanting to be different?
Yeah, pretty much. Just looking at my paint tray and thought, what colour should I do the? I'll do them green. So that's what I did. But yeah, they came out really nice. I did the arches about 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So I want to carry on that theme. So they're done. And then I've kind of agreed for OML. I'll get some dwarves done for Jim to use in his game. So I've dug out the Avatars of War dwarves which I started. So they're on my paint desk.
Oh, right, okay.
And then Joe Sala, Lucid Eye.
Oh,
Anyone who's
yes.
listening to that interview will
The man who produces lots and lots of really good looking, pretty shiny miniatures, which, let me guess, you failed to resist temptation on.
I bought a couple to see what they're like, Mike.
That's what I said, isn't it?
Just a couple.
Yeah, so I bought a couple to see what they're like, and my God, they're gorgeous.
So how many more did you buy?
I've got enough to do a unit of 24 for the fantasy game, plus 4 leaders.
Yeah, there's a thing.
Yeah. But
Okay, hands up who didn't see that coming.
I think they'll look lovely in the book.
Yes.
But
They were.
Yes, and especially the way you painted. Especially the way you painted them as well.
yeah, I've done them as sort of drowish, so very dark skins and blonde hair, and sort of an old gold style armor, and sort of muted clothes. So they're going to be a sort of a dark elfy sort of faction, which means I'll probably mix them with some goblin-esque types and some, well, all sorts of things. I'm looking at the Driders from Oakmark as well.
I was going to say, so that explains why you were looking at Driders the other day.
Yeah. And as I said on Twitter, this is the beauty of doing an open fantasy game where you can just pick and choose the figures that you really like and put them together into armies. So, yeah, those Lucid Eye elves, oh, good God, they're fantastic. So, yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Cool. I should look forward to them.
Mm.
Cool. And obviously, we've already established that Mr. Whittaker has been sweeping dust for the past month.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
I have done a few things. I have designed and 3D printed some gates for Gaslands.
Oh, cool.
I saw those. They look very nice, Mike.
Very great advantage of lovely little app that Adobe make, which is this web-based 3D design app program called Tinkercad, which if you want to sort of build... Basically, it's designed for building things from basic geometric shapes, but it does have, you've got all the nice ways you can tilt things, add them, subtract them, you can drill patterns of holes, you can do all kinds of things. You can import outlines and have them extruded in solids and that kind of thing. So you can do quite a lot with it, and it's free. So those gates were built in Tinkercad. They're very deliberately designed so that the back of them is completely flat, so they'll sit flat on the printer bed.
Do I take it then? That stuff has started adhering to your printer bed again?
Yes, it has, and I'm still not entirely sure why.
Excellent.
I still can't get bloody ABS to adhere, which is annoying me greatly because in some ways it's a better filament than PLA, which is what I'm normally using. So more experimentation will be had once I have moved the 3D printer onto the shelf in the storeroom, and there is not dust being inhaled into its fans when I try. I also finished off a little batch of Russian vehicles for a friend of the show, Pear.
Hello, Pear.
Which will be going in the post in the morning, since I will probably take advantage of the fact that I now have a Royal Mail customer on my doorstep, which is quite kind of cool. One of the nice advantages of going through the shelves and sorting out stuff and dusting it is it's almost like buying new stuff days. You find all those things you bought, you put on your shelves, and you haven't painted yet.
Indeed, yes.
So I found the box of stuff I brought home from Hereward last year, including some very nice Dave's Models 15mm Normandy buildings to add to the French town. I also found the little box that I've found and lost and found and lost and found and lost again, that contains some of Annie's lovely Dark Ages sculpts, the Shield Maidens from the original run that she's now discontinued in favour of the Freya's Wrath stuff.
Right.
Which are really rather nice. And I also found the lovely figure she does. I know I'd bought it, and it's been tagged for a character in the Dux Brick campaign. But I found her lovely figure of Cartimandua in both the ancient British furs and the one in Roman armour, which is a fabulous figure. Really, really like that. So that was kind of one of those really nice surprises while you're going through and talking to the guy. Oh, great! That's where that is. Put that somewhere safe, for God's sake. So hopefully, and the other thing I bought is a whole bunch more really useful boxes.
Oh yes,
things you discover that I wasn't previously aware of. I'm sure everybody's aware that a 4-litre box is half a 9-litre box.
Yes.
Yes. Anybody else failed to notice the existence of 19-litre boxes, which are double height 9-litre boxes?
Double height 9-litre box?
Yeah, they're basically take four 4-litre boxes and stack them on top of each other, and that's a 19-litre box.
Oh right, because I was aware of the other way where you get the 18-litre box, which is 2 9-litres side by side.
Yeah, and also a 35, which is 2 18 litres on top of each other.
Yes.
Yes, but yes, it goes 4, 9, 9, 19, and they're basically 1 height, 2 height, and 4 height. And I hadn't previously come across the 19, so I grabbed a couple because they'll be useful for something.
Oh right, yes, yes. I had to buy a. Which one was it? It was. I had to buy a 48-litre because it was a box that I could fit the pagoda in.
Yes, I had a similar problem back with my first army, which I was reminded of recently, which was having to buy what I think was an 18-litre XL. It was a something XL with the extra height lid.
Oh, the extra height lid, yeah.
Yeah, simply to fit my English Civil War pikemen in.
Oh, because you need the extra height for the pikes.
Because they're the warlord battalion box pikemen, the back 2 ranks of whom have their pikes straight up.
Yes.
Thanks, warlord. So yes, that pretty much. Lots of 3D printing stuff, lots of dusting. Lots of finding stuff I'd forgotten I'd bought, or in some cases remembered I'd bought but couldn't bloody well find, and lots of buying boxes to put it all in, is me.
Cool. So, is it time to enter the confessional?
Cue the music.
Cue the music, indeed. Dearly beloved.
Yes,
don't maybe pick the bass guitar up.
This is not ripped off Simon Mayo in any way, shape, or form.
In any way, shape, or form. Indeed. Yes, we are gathered here to confess our sins of the month. Shall I start, actually? Okay.
Go on, then. Legion.
well, that's the obvious one. I mean, right, okay. I did have one kind of unplanned purchase this month. Well, first off, obviously, when we went to Demo Legion, I did end up in a situation where the last three gang members of the first Gangs of Rome set that I hadn't got happened to fall off the shelves. So that was the start of the month. So that was my first unplanned purchase. Obviously, the major planned purchase for the month was the fact that Legion was coming out. So I've had a couple. Other than buying the couple of scenery bits like the pagoda and what have you, I have bought like 2 base boxes of Legion and an ATST and an A47 airspeeder. And having done such, I feel particularly virtuous, as we will find out shortly. The one unplanned purchase this month is a copy of Legendary Encounters Alien, which you may have come across Marvel Legendary card game. You may have heard of. Anyway, one of the variants they did of that was based around Alien. They've done another one based on Firefly and a couple of other bits and pieces. It's a cooperative card game based around the events of the 4 Alien films. I'm a big Alien fan, and it's been on my shopping list for ages. I then happened to notice that it started going out of stock everywhere. And I kind of went, oh, heck, it's not going out of print, is it? And I saw a couple of things crop up on eBay where all of a sudden people were asking silly money for it. So I then spotted that I think it was Zatu Games or somebody still had like a dozen copies for under £50. So I bought them. It's still in its shrink wrap. I've not had a chance to have a look at it yet. But I'm assured by several people who got it and played it, it's very good. But it was one of those things of I suddenly kind of had this thing of I do not want to be in a position where I haven't bought it and it's gone out of print. So I bought it, and I think that's about it, because I did back the Batman Kickstarter, but that wasn't for me. That was for Josh. And then he turned around and went, "Oh, don't worry, Dad, I'll back it." So I've pulled. So Josh is backing the Batman Kickstarter.
So you both are then?
No. I cancelled mine. I have decided that yes, no, I am backing out of. I have backed out of.
But you will be advising Josh on what to purchase, of course.
Oh, well, he's buying everything.
Are you sure about that? Have you checked?
Didn't take much advice then, did it?
Well, as I say, I mean, he is a big Batman DC fan, so you know, he wants the entire thing. So I think he's buying everything.
You might want to check that. It'd be awful if you get to the end and you went, "Oh, Dan, I had to drop that because I had no money."
Well, yeah, there is that. But you know,
quick, buy a copy and sell it to Neil in a year's time for twice the money.
That's my trick.
Yeah.
Yes. Quite. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm mindful of, as I say, I'm mindful of what's coming up. I mean, as we record this tomorrow, Thursday, Lifeform launches on Kickstarter, which is done by the same guys who did Gloom of Kilforth. Well, they're publishing it. It's written by somebody different, but that's another sci-fi horror game along the Alien line. I know I backed Nemesis, and then I've heard this Lifeform thing. I'm kind of thinking, oh, that sounds interesting. And then I'd forgotten the fact that next month, Mantic are launching a Kickstarter for the Hellboy board game. I'm a Hellboy fan. And the stuff they previewed for it at the moment looks really nice. And they've even got Mike Mignola doing some new artwork for it. It's like... Anyway, so that's stuff to come. Yes, that was me. So, yeah, lots of Star Wars, which is predictable, and a couple of other bits and pieces. Oh, and I bought I almost forgot, I bought the new box of monks for Test of Honor. The Sohai monks, because they were released on the Saturday of the Warring States event. So I bought that. So lovely set of figures, and a very interesting book of 7 or 8 scenarios in a linked campaign. Very good. Only downside is that the unit cards included in the box do not give you a full 24-point warband. Harumph.
Oh dear.
That's me.
Do you want me to go next?
Is it going to be expensive?
It was.
Go on then.
Who are you asking here? Come on.
It's been on Monday. Okay, so we've already covered the Lucid Eye Elves, which I've splurged on, and Warhammer Quest. I've also backed a Kickstarter, which is the Heroes of Stalingrad.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Which looks very, very nice. So yeah, that's been kickstarted. I bought some books. I bought the Investigators of Arkham Horror book which Fantasy Flight released a while ago, and it's
what's on it?
It's a bunch of short stories about all the investigators in Arkham Horror, Mansions of Madness, and what's the Elder? Is it Elder Sign?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh right. Oh, so what is it like their backstory sort of thing?
Yeah, sort of bits of backstory, bits of history about them. But yeah, it's just a beautifully, loads of artwork in there, lots of nice little stories and stuff. It makes perfect bedtime reading. So I got that from I can't remember where I got it from, but yeah, that's lovely. I also had another nostalgia trip, and carrying on the RuneQuest theme, I noticed the Chaosium have released a version of Borderlands, which was a big RuneQuest supplement that came out, or expansion that came out early 80s.
Man, that's going back away.
Yeah. Well,
my RuneQuest GM had that at uni.
Yeah. It was such a really good campaign. We played a little bit of it, but they've released a book, and they've chucked in Plunder and Rune Masters in there as well, and it was like £30. But basically, it's the whole lot, because if you try and buy Borderlands on eBay, you're looking at about 150 quid.
Yeah.
But this is just it's a really nice large book, everything in there. So I thought, that would be nice just to have a read through. I'll probably never ever play it, but it's lots of good Gloranthian background in there, which I know will probably spin me off into all sorts of weird directions. What else we got? I bought some walls from Treefella. Some nice sort of buff stone walls.
Mm-hmm.
They're very nice. They're resin, all painted. A bit of flock on them. So pretty much they arrived, and a day later I was playing. They were on the table, so I'm going to use those in OML for my scenario. I'm going to do in that. What else we got? I bought the most important thing that you could ever buy for wargaming, which is the Bacchus basing kit.
Smart move.
Which I tend to buy one every sort of 8 months or so when I run out of the previous one. But the Bacchus basing kit, if people haven't used it, go and get it. It'll change your life, because it's got a nice sort of shade colour that you can put over gravel or sand. It's got 3 nice colours for doing your basing. It's got some flock in there. There's some very, very fine earth. There's PVA. There's all sorts in there. And there's about a tenner, I think, or something stupid like that. Maybe a bit more. But yeah, get it. It's fantastic. So I got that just to stock me back up. I bought some storage boxes for my Heroes of Normandy.
Right.
Because I got fed up of them being in the little boxes that I couldn't find anything. So I bought some proper storage boxes for that. And then Staffen G on the Twitter mentioned that he was going to get rid of some of his epic stuff, and he had a load of knights. So we did a deal, and he sent them to me. So I've got a load of knights. So I'm going to do an Adeptus Mechanicus army for epic one day in the future.
Sometime.
Yeah. Sometime before I die, I'm doing my Adeptus type Mechanicus.
You can't die before you've painted everything in the painting backlog, so you'll be fine for a bit, mate.
Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll be fine for hundreds of years, mate.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And the final thing is, right, Miss Deborah Slade. Yes, of Saddle Goose Designs. I've become a little bit obsessed by her dice bags.
Oh dear.
Yes.
And she posted some pictures of a really nice dark green dice bag with this sort of Celtic style horse in white on it.
Oh, some of those were really, really pretty.
Oh, they are. Yeah. They are very nice indeed, yes.
They were so pretty, I've broken out the really, really pretty phrase I haven't used in ages.
Yeah. I can testify that they're absolutely fantastic, because one sat on my desk.
There you go.
Is that for your Rohan army?
That's for my Rohan army.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yep. So, thank you, Debs. Absolutely fantastic.
I'm sorry, mate. All the others, I can sit there and go, "Dear God, what were you doing?"
Yeah.
But I cannot fault you for that one.
Yeah. They're so nice and so useful. You can't have enough dice bags. Although the wife just say, "Why have you bought another dice bag? You've got you've got about 10 of them."
Because I wanted somewhere to put more dice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why have you bought more really useful boxes? To put stuff in.
To put my dice bags in.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I must admit, Deb's has got about. I think there's about 4 of hers. I'm kind of looking at and going, yeah. Well, I'd like to use that for that. That for that. It's like, it's dice bag. You just need one. It's like, well, no, but I want to have a themed one for Test of Honor. I want to have a themed one for Gangs of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
I need another one for I need another one for Legion. And it's yeah.
You just do.
Yeah.
You do.
Got to be done. It's all about the brand.
It's got to be done.
Support Debs. Debs is awesome.
Yeah. So there we go. That's me done.
Fine. Which leaves anything else done for Mr. Whittaker? Anything you bought this month?
I bought an objective from the folks at Kerr & King.
Oh right, yeah.
Oh yeah, they do some lovely stuff.
They do.
It's a downed Fiesler Stork.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that one. That is cool.
Which is strangely enough is going to be an IAB shot my objective for the next game. So if any of my players are listening, put your fingers in your ears yesterday. It's lovely, actually. It's a beautiful little cast. Very, very nice indeed. I'm very taken with that, he says, admiring it as it happens to be on the bench next to him.
Yeah.
That is lovely. That is very, very nice.
Yeah, I've got a whole North African village that they did with all of the mosaics that sit outside in the wall gardens.
Yes. It's in, and the other. Let's see. I don't think I bought anything else. He says, looking through his PayPal activity log. No, that doesn't count. 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 Oh dear. Those count. Couple of boats for the salute game for the club.
Boats. Ooh.
Sorry, had to cough there. Boats, as in resin. Not resin. I think they're resin. Actually, I don't know whether they're resin or not. I haven't seen them yet because they're still sitting in Bristol for complicated reasons. Old Glory do a model of the Mimi and the Tutu, the 2 boats that were sailing around on Lake Tanganyika in World War One, which are extremely hard to get in this country. Well, actually, no, that's not fair. They're very easy to get in this country. It's just that the postage to get them from Old Glory in the States is the same as the cost of the boats.
Yes.
And since the boats are $35 each, that's a bit ridiculous.
Indeed.
So,
what scales are?
25 mil.
25 mil, isn't it?
Yeah. But they are about, they're something like 8 inches long. They're not small pieces of work. So they got sent to my friend Daniel, who lives in Chicago, who fortunately was coming over last week. So they're currently sitting with the friend he was staying with in Bristol, and I shall either pop down one day and collect them, or I shall have to throw them in the post, on the grounds that will probably be easier. And they just need a quick paint job. So those are probably the only other purchase this month. Lots of repurchased things by discovering them on shelves, but no new purchases.
Cool. Well, what a lot of stuff we've been up to.
Anybody got spotted anything interesting new that they want to draw folks' attention to? I have.
Before we do that,
yes.
We do have one final thing in the confessional.
Go on.
Which of course is our new segment. What's Dave bought this month?
What's Dave? Yes.
You thought I was bad.
No.
With buying.
I know you're
with buying 2 box sets of Legion plus a couple of extras. You know, Dave wasn't a miniature wargamer. He started getting into board games.
Yeah, he's just bought lots of Star Wars Legion, hasn't he?
He bought every single box from Wave 1.
I hope he didn't play full retail.
with a with the exception of the extra set of dice and the extra set of rulers, because he bought 2 base boxes, but he did buy one of everything.
Sheesh. Good man.
He's got it bad.
Yeah.
Yes, I did notice the arrival of that when a large UPS truck pulled up outside. And
Yes.
Ruben took delivery of about 10 of everything.
Yes, there's a lot of it, and yes. So yes, that's what Dave has bought this month. However, the other thing is that I will note that he's the one that's pushing me to go to ChillCon
Of course he
at
is.
the weekend,
Of course he is.
because he wants to have a look at the latest Sarissa stuff. Especially he's built his Gangs of Rome bundle from Sarissa,
Of course he is.
and he's on the lookout for a few more buildings, quote unquote. He's got it bad. He really has.
Has he bought any paint yet? What paint can we get him to buy?
He's on Vallejo.
Is he?
Oh, you could always just send him to Foreground to get the complete their complete MDF paint set.
Foundry. Do the Foundry ones.
No,
They-
do the Foreground ones. They're fun. Says the man who owns the set.
The foreground ones. Of the buildings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
buildings.
they're extremely handy simply because they are a colour match for what they already put on the MDF. So if you're trying to get rid of all those things that make things look like Foreground without having to repaint the entire building,
Yeah.
they're actually really handy.
Yeah. But Dave, get Foundry. There's only a few hundred pots.
Yeah, I'm sure Foundry will sell you a complete set for
Oh, they will do, yeah.
uh,
It's all
for,
try out.
for your for your firstborn, half your mortgage, and the price of your next car.
Foundry's on. Foundry's at ChillCon.
Oh, yeah, but they won't have the complete range of paint. Dave, get a couple of paints there. Now, brushes. What brushes?
Kalinsky Sable, lots of it.
No, he's only started. Start him off as a Premier.
No, go the whole hog. But he won't have to buy them again afterwards.
Yeah, well, because he'll wreck Sable. He's just learning.
In which case, you might as well buy the army painters because they're actually a reasonable compromise on that skill.
I'm not a fan of the Army Painter brush, I must admit. I don't like the...
I like them, but that's partly because I can always stick my head around the door and go, Ribbon, you don't understand.
Yeah. That is very useful, yeah.
Well, it's always been useful because he's always come to the club with a collection of all the things that you use up over the weekend on a Monday.
Very
Yeah. What's the 3 biggest things he sells? Paintbrushes, super glue, and black and white primer.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell you what? Do you want me to tell you what paintbrushes he did actually buy?
Oh, dear.
Go on.
He bought a set of Winsor Newton 7s.
A
Well, that was
set?
going to be my next suggestion.
Oh, a set? What? Like, what? what? Oh, dear.
It did. At one point, apparently, it did include I think it was a number 5.
We'll never use that.
You will.
You will. You shouldn't. Dave, you need one. You need one Winsor Newton 7, and that's a 1, and possibly a 0. That's all you need for them. Everything else, get cheap brushes because you're going to go for.
There's a set here on Amazon that goes up to a 10. But you can paint buildings with them.
What?
Paint buildings with a Winsor Newton.
No.
You beast!
Please don't. I'm only suggesting that for Dave as a use for his 5.
He should paint buildings with his brand new airbrush that he's going to buy and his compressor.
Yes, because he is going on the same airbrush course that I went on at Barwell last year. He's going on that same course. I think it's at the end of April.
Dear Lord and Father.
It's the week before. It's the week before Hammerhead, and I could seriously see him having an accident.
You do know how much a Winsor & Newton Series 7 Kalinsky Sable size 5 costs, don't you?
Yes.
31 quid on it.
I was going to say it's over 30 quid.
Do you know how much a size 10 is?
40?
138. and that's with quite a sizable discount. The RRP is $234.
You want to get one of those, Dave? They're useful, mate. I use them all the time for buildings and varnish, especially for varnish.
I think I'll stick to Army Painter. I'm not a good enough painter for Winsor and Newton.
Dave, honestly, I do a lot of painting, and I've got one Winsor and Newton. I've got a couple of broken toads, which I use a lot. The rest of my stuff are cheap Premier brushes.
I, on the other hand, am sufficiently abusive to brushes that just picking up fresh Army Painters whenever they get too knackered to use is by far and away the best approach for me.
Tell you what you should do is, Mike, is have a word with Ruben and see if you can get like a private opening for Dave. Bring Dave down on his own. See if Ruben will open up the storeroom for Dave to look around. It'll be worth his while.
That would be funny, I suspect. What, with Legion at 20% off, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, Dave, we do love you. Welcome to the club, mate. Next week we'll talk about super glues. And basic material. We'll talk to you about basic material.
Basic material, yeah. And we still need to go back and talk varnish, I must admit, after the incident, shall I call it, with it's really put me off Army Painter Anti-Shine.
Never use it, it's rubbish.
And never
have a problem with it.
Because that was the one that Luffy recommended to me, and as I say, it was the first time I used it, it was fine. But on those figures that I painted with inks, they
crackled, didn't they?
No. Basically, it reactivated the inks, and it all ran.
Yeah.
And it almost completely ruined the figures, and it was like, no. So I at a point thinking, I need to find and I need to rediscover a decent varnish.
You need a little fan heater. That's what you
know
need.
What that means, mate. I hate to say it. Despite the smell, Tester's dull coat.
Yeah.
Tester's dull coat?
That's what I always use.
Yeah, that's what Andy Hall swears by. Only he uses the brush stuff, which is a lot less unpleasant.
Yeah. I got an old table in my garage, which I bring out. I got a little fan heater, which I set up. I put the figures next to the fan heater for 10 minutes to warm up the air, turn the fan heater off, spray it with varnish, put the fan heater back on it.
Yeah, we are giving serious thought to a spray booth in the workshop.
Yeah. But you put the fan heater on, it dries up the air, because it's all the moisture in the air.
Sure.
Yeah. The same is true with the Army Painter. If you're going to spray them outside, the first thing you do when you finish, you get them inside, not a radiator, fast.
Yeah. So, yeah. Invest in a little £10 fan heater. And warm up.
Right.
Warm up for about 10-15 minutes. There you go.
Yeah, just don't paint with the cold and wet, particularly not the wet or the cold.
I do. I just leave the heater on longer. I was spraying when it was snow and a gale. But I got a garage. I got a built-in garage, and I got the little fan heater. Just warm up the air. Same when I'm priming. Do exactly the same then. There we go.
Cool. There you go. Right. Okay then. Well, and on that note, shall we call this section done?
I think so.
Where are we doing cool things? What we spotted, of which I have a couple.
Let's do that on the way out, shall we?
Alrighty. That works for me.
Okay. Cool.
Let's get my links in order.
The nation is vast. There are battlefields of old, great convention halls, and worlds of fantasy to explore. Who will guide us across this great geek nation?
Since 2010, Geek Nation Tours have been providing holidays for groups of like-minded people. Whatever your nature of geek, tabletop gaming, TV, film, comic books, sports or science, Geek Nation Tours caters for you. Visit www.geeknationtours.com for more details and join the Great Geek Nation. Have you ever wondered what's going on in wargaming? We do too. So come with us as we go behind the hobby with the Meeples and Miniatures interview. We would like to welcome back to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. It's Adrian McWalter from Stand 2 Games. Hello, Adrian.
Hi Neil. Hi chaps. Hi Mikes. How are you?
We're doing well, thank you. How are you doing? You alright?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on again. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to have you back, mate. It's great to have you back. Now, you may remember that we spoke to AD last year about Forager, and we also were talking about Over the Hills. And we've even gone as far as starring in a couple of videos with him. The how to play Forager video that appeared on the Kickstarter actually featured my AD and myself, and plus there was Mr. Hobbs. You were running Over the Hills game as well, weren't you?
I was, yeah. That was at Firestorm.
It was
Firestorm Open Day.
Yes, and. Yes, those videos are still around somewhere if you're interested. But yeah, so AD, it's great to have you back on because we thought it would be good to catch up with what's been happening with Stand 2, and I understand you've got lots of stuff going on at the moment. So we thought we'd quiz you on everything that's going on and what we can expect to see from you in the coming months. Right. So first off, Forager.
Yeah, Forager.
That's the award-winning Forager, since it did win a trophy at Hereward for its scenery build.
Yes, award-winning Forager. Forgot about that. Brilliant. Yeah, award-winning at last. Yeah, Forager. So Forager's a Napoleonic skirmish game that went to Kickstarter a few months ago. Wave 1 stuff has gone out. Actually collecting the cards for the Forager game tomorrow. So we'll be sending everything out of the Portuguese and Spanish plus their cards in the next week or so. So we'll fulfill our agreements and pledges, which is really good.
Cool.
So we've, in terms of Forager, we've got a British commander 6 figures, a French commander 6 figures, Portuguese commander 6 figures, and a Spanish commander 6 figure or 7 figures, because there's a Kickstarter exclusive miniature. And they'll be out to everybody who pledged. Well, the British and the French are out, the Spanish will be out on time before end of April. So that's really, really good for us. So the Kickstarter went really, really well. We asked for, I think it was about £4,000, and we got triple that with the amount of interest. People are playing it, people feedbacking it, giving us some really good feedback about it. I hadn't seen any bad feedback, and we've seen some really good games. Me and you, Neil, we had a game down at Firestone that went really well and proved that you sometimes do have good luck because you beat me. Yeah, in terms of Forager, everything's hunky-dory, really.
Brilliant.
Push that.
Cool. I mean, how did you find the whole Kickstarter experience? Was it something that really worked well for you?
It did. I think we've learned from it. It's like everything else. Myself and Quinton weren't born businessmen. We've got normal jobs, but we have learned. I mean, we held it over a long period of time, and I don't think we'd do that again. But we did it for reasons, which was to get around to the shows and showcase what we were about. But I think we could do that in fast time and get things out there to people a bit quicker. But in terms of what we thought would happen, because I'm the eternal pessimist, so I didn't think we'd fund. And I think we funded within 3 days. So it was really, really good.
Mm. Cool. So okay, so you've been cracking on. With that, and obviously you've been back out demoing Forager since the Kickstarter, and then we came across you. I think we had a chat with you at Derby. I think it was first off, and and then and Quinton talked about suddenly came up with like Forager 2, and it was like, what didn't you say anything to us before?
But it's Quinton's passion is wargaming in North America.
Right, okay.
Yeah, mine's more Napoleonics. So we agreed that we'd do Napoleonics first, and then we'd move. If Forager did well, we'd move it into the North American sphere. So Quinton is feverishly working away on turning Forager into the North American version of Forager. So we're going from the late 17th century and all the French and Indian Wars right up until, I believe, it's not believe, it is the American Civil War. And he's going to section all those off, and we're going to have, more traits and more equipment and scenarios for each period from the late 17th century to the mid 18th century.
Oh wow! So that's covers quite a big time period, and be interesting to see how. Cause, there was a bit of a technology change during that phase, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, massively, yeah. And so, the later American Civil War weapons compared with the late 17th century weapons, there's a bit of a difference. So we've been playtesting it, and the simplicity of the combat system, which is a character has a certain number of combat D10s, and you add and take away to that, depending on what weapon they are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
It really fits in well with little tweaks that you get over a range of weapons.
Okay, so you're kind of working on playtesting that then. So isn't something we're likely to see pretty soon, is it? Or where do you think that's liable to? When do you think we're liable to see that, or a bit more of that?
Yeah, we're looking at the end of May, beginning of June for that. I'd say playtesting. Forager, we think, in its purest form, is quite robust.
Yeah,
we can most periods onto the combat and the games mechanics of it. So it's just tweaking the later weaponry, some of the traits that we're putting in there, but the vast majority of Forager will be in there anyway. It's just tweaking it to each different period, really. So there's not that much to do with it. It's just a bit of a rewrite, because we don't want to make it look and sound Napoleonic. We wanted to make it look and sound American, as it were, or in the American field.
Yeah.
So there's not that much to do with it, because Forager as a system is quite robust.
Cool. So are you planning on producing your own miniatures for Forager 2 in the same way that you do for Forager?
I don't think we are at this moment. We're going to concentrate on miniatures for Forager, Napoleonic miniatures. That's not to say that in the future we won't get around to doing miniatures for the Forager 2, because we produced a set of figures that we think are quite characterful. So although there are lots and lots of figures that cover the French and Indian Wars, American Civil War, I think ours would have a different slant on it. But what we want to do is make sure that when I came on and talked about Forager originally, I talked about a range of other figures that we're going to produce, and what we want to do is make sure that we honour that.
Okay, so we're looking at French Indian War, American War of Independence, or the Revolutionary War, as War of 1812.
Yeah, War of 1812, and then some American. The Mexican-American War, the Tex-Mex. 1836, Alamo and all that sort of thing, then right through to Maximilian Adventure and the American Civil War.
Oh, cool!
So it's a massive range, but people already have figures that they can use the rules for if they've got skirmish figures. So we're covering quite a lot of period, but people find a bit for them their genre that they like within Forager too.
Are you going to cover sort of generic Wild West as well, Aid?
We were not. It was because what we were going to do. We were going to move it right up until the Pony Wars. We had a discussion as late as yesterday in terms of do we do Pony Wars and take it into gunfighting, and we thought that we might be stretching where we're going with it and run out of time. So if we do I think what we would do is do something online as a PDF free to turn it into playing Plains Indians and playing Cowboys and Indians basically, just as an add-on, as a little freebie on the Facebook page or something like that.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. The thing is, it's quite a big thing as soon as you start getting into sort of Wild West and Cowboys and Indians and stuff, it's so much that you could probably write a whole book just on that. Couldn't you?
Yeah, and I think that's where Quinton's head is that if he wanted to write something around that, he'd want to do it as a standalone, bespoke thing, produce it, and then see if people like it, and if they do, then we'll build it into something that we can produce properly.
Yeah, it'd be cool. So, with you doing the War of 1812, are you going to cover the Creek War as well?
Hopefully, Quinton's on that. He's going to do everything around it. So I haven't seen his notes in terms of 1812 other than covering the main parties, but I don't know about the Creek War. So it should do. When I met yesterday with him, we didn't cover that, but I hope, hopefully it'll happen. Or should do anyway. It's just, he's all over it.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because that is quite a forgotten campaign in that whole period, wasn't it? It sort of got overlooked by the War of 1812, which itself has been overlooked by most things. So it's a niche of a niche, isn't it?
Exactly, it is a niche, and but that's what we want to cover. And we want to bring out the minutiae of some of the wars in the US, some of the conflict in the US, and again, it's when we move on to talk about Over the Hills, we're producing a book there that people, I think, will turn around and say, well, why are you doing that? Because it is a niche. But that's what we want to do.
Niches are good these days.
Yeah.
Cool. So, okay, so you're saying May-ish for that then?
Yeah, we are. It's I would say if I was an optimist, it would be middle May. If I was a pessimist, I would say beginning of June.
Cool.
And that will be Forager 2. What we're going to do, we're going to take... we started it. In fact, when you saw us at Robin, we'd got a French-Indian Wars set up there, and we were running participation games of that with some native Indians and some settlers, and they were having a bash at each other. So we're going to do that and make sure that we get that produced.
Cool. Because so one of the challenges with that is that you have quite a much wider range of protagonists, don't you?
Exactly, but we look at that as that's something that we can exploit in terms of an opportunity for us, because what we can do is we can add more traits, more scenarios. It allows us to go other ways than where we went with the Napoleonics. So it opens other doors for us in terms of where we can take the rules.
Cool. And then on the Forager front, with miniatures, we were we were talking at Robin about because obviously there you had the Portuguese and the Spanish on display.
Yes. And
you were talking about the possibility of where to go next.
Yeah, well, we've decided. We've had a chat with the sculptor. So we're going to go French Dragoons on foot and some British riflemen are our next foray. And again, that's going to be along the same timeline as Forager 2. So we're having those sculpted and getting those into production, hopefully mid this year.
Brilliant, because as I say, the one thing is that especially dismounted French Dragoons. There's not a lot around, are there?
No.
I think that there's the Perry's in the plastic box set.
The Perry's plastic box set contains a few.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But memory serves not enough.
Yeah. There's to my knowledge, I think War Games Foundry may do some. I think, and Perry's, but they're not that many. But again, even if there were, I mean, it's like we're doing the 95th.
Yeah.
There's lots of 95th, you know, but we think our figures have got that much character that they set themselves aside from other figure manufacturers. Not saying they're better or worse, just they are different.
How do they fit in scale-wise with the likes of the Perrys?
I think ours are quite taller, more robust than the Perrys. They're more of a
possibly closer to the Warlord, chunky.
Yes.
Yeah, they are chunky. Ours are characterful and chunky is one of the briefs that we gave to the sculptor.
Right. Well, seem to have succeeded.
Yeah, exactly, because we are characterful and chunky, like me and Quinn.
Saying nothing.
Cool. Right. Okay. So that basically covers Forager then. So are you just going to be producing those two miniature ranges, just straight sculpt, put them out in the shop, sort of thing?
That's the plan at this moment in time. And then once we've done that, we're going to look at others. We want to do lots and lots of other Napoleonic ranges that include a set of six skirmishers, Austrian Grenzers, that sort of thing. So we just want to take it all over Europe in terms of skirmishing characters. We haven't decided whether it's going to be a Kickstarter project or a straight to the website. But that depends on obviously finance. But if it has to go to Kickstarter, it'll go to Kickstarter, and we'll see if people want to buy it. Really.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so that basically puts Forager to bed. But obviously, the other thing you were talking about was a whole new direction for Over the Hills.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we thought we've played it's a club. Over the Hills started as a club game, as did Forager, and once we started playing Over the Hills, people at the club who play American Civil War, including Quinton and the people he plays ACW with, and people I play American War and Independence with, thought, well, why don't we, we've got all these rules, why don't we try Over the Hills, the basic mechanics of it, in those two periods. Tried them with obviously rule changes to flavour the period. They work, so we thought, well, let's produce it, let's get it out there, because people that play it love it. People that play Over the Hills love it. It's getting it out there to get people to play it. But once people play Over the Hills, they love it. I haven't seen a bad review of the rules, and we get lots and lots of people that have said, I've searched for a Napoleonic set of rules for 30 years plus, and I found Over the Hills, and there's no turning back for me. So we thought, well, why don't we apply that to other periods? And so that's where we're going next with our the stuff that we're doing, which is taking Over the Hills to the American Civil War, American War Independence.
I can attest to that, because I'm one of those people who's been searching for Napoleonic rules for years, and I don't play anything else now. So again, you're going to cover the same sort of eras as you're going to do in Forager 2? Or are you going to try and stick to a certain subset of the big conflicts?
I think at the moment we're looking at AWI, and we're looking at ACW, and we're going to see how that goes. Over the Hills has done well. I think ACW will do well. I think I talked about niche. AWI is a niche. But we think that we've got a number of sets of rules that we don't think come up to the mark in terms of AWI, and we think that our rules will push people, pulls buttons, as did Over the Hills.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing AWI for big battles, because, like I say, there's not many decent rules out there, and it is quite a difficult period to capture the flavour of it, isn't there?
That's right, and We've sort of sat down. We've looked at, in particular, to some modern reflections on how AWI battles should be fought or should look like on a war games table, and we've introduced that. And that's some people will think it'll be an eye opener for some people, and some people might balk against it, because there are some bits and bobs in there that will not reflect what people think of an AWI battle, I think.
In what way are you saying that?
In terms of we've got there are skirmish groups that are withdrawn from line battalions in the British Army and Hessian battalions and continental battalions. So we've got skirmish groups in there. We've got British fighting in open order in the main. So just things like that people debate about, but we are sold on the fact that there were skirmishers or skirmish units, there were skirmish parties that fought as part of a regular battle that were drawn from regular line units in the British Army and the Hessian Army. So
didn't they cut down the Brown Bess in AWI? Because didn't it start as the long land pattern, but then they basically went down to the short land pattern. Time.
Yeah.
And that was because they were fighting in undergrowth, and the big muskets kept getting in the way. So
got in the way. Yeah. So we're in terms of that, we've the way the rules are flavoured in terms of AWI is the closeness of the American battlefield really affects and really changes over the hills into the, I would say, over Bunker Hill. Then that was the early. That was the early. We're going to call it Rise and Fight Again. So that's AWI, and the ACW set's going to be called Over Malvern Hill. But the closeness of the American battlefield in AWI has a massive effect on how the rules work out in the AWI set. So it affects command and control. It affects weapon ranges. It affects morale. So it's not people who play Over the Hills like Mark. You will recognise Over the Hills, but if you played it, you'd play it as an AWI game.
Yeah. That sounds really, really interesting. So is this going to be separate books, or you just can do one book to cover both periods?
No, it's 2 books. Yeah, 2 books, 70-odd pages each. So it follows the Over the Hills. Well, it doesn't follow the Over. One of the feedback that we had about Over the Hills is it's a great game, but this was my decision. What I decided to do was split Over the Hills into a basic game, an optional game, and an appendices. And the majority of the feedback has been you should have put the optional rules in with. So if you've got a rule for formations, and then you've got some optional formations, you should have put the optional formations in with the formations so that people can see them straight away. So we're going to do that. We've done. Well, we're going to do. We have done that. So we've listened to feedback. I think that's one of the main points of feedback that we've had in terms of the layout of the book. So we've done that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that. I do have to admit, I really like the format of it, because you do have that. These are the basic rules, and then the way that the optional rules are tailored, they're tailored as individual items that you can sort of, basically pick and take what you want.
Yeah.
So for me, I really like the format of it, but I do get what people are saying. As you say, it might be nice to say, right, these are the basic rules, and these are the extra stuff that you can add on.
And and I think that's. I think so. We'll pander to both views, because it will be. These are the formations for the basic game. These are the formations for the optional game. So you can actually skip reading the optional rules until you've got the basic game in your head. It's still sectioned off. It's just easier to find.
Yeah. Very, very good. So is they going to be completely standalone books? You won't have to, have a copy of Over the Hills to play the new ones.
No, standalone books. So it's there's specific rules that have changed. ACW Over the Hills into ACW. Specific rules that have changed Over the Hills into Rise and Fight Again at the AWI. So it's a completely different rule set. I think we wrote it a little bit better as well, and it's laid out better. So we've obviously learnt, hopefully. So the feedback should be really, really good, like it were for Over the Hills. But it'll be a better product in terms of its layout and design.
Might actually get me to do 15mm AWI armies.
There you go. Get it done.
Not sure I'd afford to buy more stuff. I'd get in trouble. But when does that ever stop me?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, when has it ever stopped any of us that? The looming partner.
Yeah.
Okay, so how far along are you with putting all that together?
The AWI book's laid out and done. That's having its final edit. The ACW book over Malvern Hill is laid out. I've just got to finish a few photo bits and bobs on it, and then that'll go to its final edit. So then those two are sorted. Then we've got a final piece of work that we're doing with a guy by the name of Jonathan Jones, who's got JJ's Wargaming blog spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we're doing he has written for us a 90-page scenario book based in 1809 Peninsular War that's got 12 scenarios and some massive amount of detail. If people follow JJ and his blog spot, they'll have seen him playtesting all the scenarios in there, and they are superb, and it's all around Over the Hills. So that's going to go to Kickstarter at the same time as myself and Quinton's work.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and that's I'm laying that out at the moment. That's about 40% done, 50% done. But I've got a couple of weeks off, so it'll get done within the next couple of weeks, and then off to edit. So
when are you hoping to? I mean, is that something you're going to go through Kickstarter again, or are you going to?
Yeah. We're going to go. It's. I think the last time we talked about it, you hit the nail on the head, Neil. In terms of we don't know we still don't know how big our target audience is or our market is. So, but for us, the best way of doing that is going to Kickstarter to see if people do want to buy. Like last time, do want to buy Forager. This time, do want to buy ACW, do want to buy American War Independence, and are interested in Over the Hills enough to buy into a scenario booklet. So that's where we're going with that, and that'll be in the second week in April. We'll be going to that. If we could start in the first week of April, that'd be great. But we're giving ourselves a bit of slack to say second week in April.
Oh, right. So you're basically running one Kickstarter after the other, then?
Yes, we're going to do two. Hopefully, we're going to do this one. The first one, our sights are set on the three books, and get that boxed off. So that's where all his efforts going in terms of that. Running alongside of that is the Forager 2 and the figures, the French Dragoons and the 95th Rifles. So it's all running together. It's lots of plates that we're spinning, but the first three spinning plates are the books, and they'll be going soon.
Wow. Okay.
Busy times.
Yeah. Oh, mate, busy is not the word. And my wife forced me back to go into 3 days a week at work, so it's like even busier. So I thought I'd retired, but no.
Never mind, mate.
I know.
Yeah. Are you still planning on doing sort of supplements for Over the Hills to cover the sort of major armies?
Yes. Yeah, that's I think what we did, JJ came to us and he said, I really love your rules. Again, it was one of those, I've searched for rules for years and years and years, and I've got Over the Hills, they're brilliant, and I've got this book. I looked at it and I thought, that's right where we want it. But what it also is will people buy into it? If people buy into that, then I think they'll buy into, scenario booklets for the Austrians, Russians, etc., etc. I know at one point I was sending you army lists around the Austrians for 1809, 5th Coalition. We've parked that up, and the only reason we've parked it up is because of the amount of plates that we've got spinning. And what we want to do is make sure that we do a good job on it. And the feedback I was getting from you was that I wasn't where I wanted to be. So I thought, well, I'm going to park that up. I'm going to get what we need to do and what we've talked about in the past, get those all sorted out, and then have a real good look at it. But definitely, we're going to be doing booklets for the major combatants from Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, I must admit, I mean, given a choice, I think I'd rather buy a sort of campaign book that covered a specific period and gave you, sort of covered what you would have in an expansion book that covers a particular
And that is exactly it. And that the design, when JJ got in touch with us, the initial design brief was it was going to be the War of the Fifth Coalition, so it was going to include Austria as well, and other nations. But it just got. I mean, JJ's efforts are 90 pages just on that alone. So then there's a lot of detail in it. It's absolutely fantastic. There's orders of battle. It's been over the hills. There's detailed reports about the battle fought. There's scenario maps and notes and special rules. He's really gone to town on it, and that's what we want to do. So we couldn't, you'd have a right mighty tome if you tried the War of the Fifth Coalition as a oneer. So we decided to cut that part, concentrate on what JJ had done because we think it's an excellent piece of work, and then later down the line, and I'm not saying that far down the line, do the same thing with other campaigns. So they're introducing. So it's not just this is the Russian army in over the hills. It might be the 1812 supplement. It might be the 1809 supplement, the 1813 supplement, and so on.
Yeah, that'd be really good because there's enough army lists, so there's enough basic information in the rules to be able to put together armies for the whole period. Anyway.
Yes.
So by approaching it from a campaign perspective, I think you get a lot more buy-in.
Yeah, and
I think it'll also attract people who have armies for those periods as well, because it'll get them thinking about how they use their armies and hopefully buying some more figures, which is always nice.
Always, very true. So that's where we want to go with, and we'll see. I mean, when people see what JJ's done, I think they'll be really pleased because it's a good piece of work.
Excellent stuff.
Okay, so on both of these, you're saying, okay, we're going to Kickstarter in April and May. When are you looking at publishing them? Assuming the Kickstarters go well, because I mean, like for example, when you did Forager, you did it was a 60-day Kickstarter, wasn't it?
It was a long time, and like I said, we've learned from that. These ones are going to be 30 days, quick hits. Hopefully they fund. If they fund, soon after we fund, we'll obviously create more books than the Kickstarter requires and start producing them. Get the money from the Kickstarter, put it back into the company, produce more stuff, sell it.
Cool.
The idea.
I'd say, what sort of lead time do you think you'll have? So saying, okay, right, all being well. Okay, if you kickstart the new Over the Hills books, for example, in April, when are you hoping to get them published?
The turnaround time for the Forager books was 2 weeks. So in terms of turnaround time, it's fast. The only thing we think that we'll not struggle on, but it'll be a longer turnaround time will be when we start looking at figures. If we went to Kickstarter, but for books it is fast as.
Oh right, okay.
Because the actual take for example the American Warrior for Independence book, Rise and Fight Again. That is written. That is that I could send that to the publisher. Well, I couldn't. It's going to go through an edit, but that takes a couple of days. That could go to the printers, and that would be back with me probably sometime in 2 weeks' time. It's that fast.
Oh right, so it really is a case of these are in a status where you're going to kind of hit the ground running, and people can get their product really quickly.
Yeah, it's not a case of please fund us and we are going to write something. It is written. Two of them are virtually one's late, one's done-ish, one's 40-50% done. But when we go to Kickstarter, they will be done. they'll have been done. You'll see them on Kickstarter in terms of what they look like, what they've got, what content it is, and then what we'll do is we'll find out how many people want to buy into what we're about, and then as soon as that happens and the Kickstarter ends, we'll send them out.
Okay, so that's what's in your, I suppose, the immediate future for Santu, which I suppose is busy enough. But you're also looking further afield, aren't you?
Yeah, we again, it's looking at. We love Over the Hills. People who play Over the Hills love it, but we think again, myself and Quint, we play Ancients, we play Dark Ages, we play Renaissance. I, in the main, as well, play fantasy gaming. So in terms of Over the Hills, we're looking at, can it work? Can the mechanic reach as far back as 2000 BC? And can it reach into the 1560s and 70s? We think it can, but that's more of it's particularly in ancient warfare, it's more of sort of skin on skin rather than the psychology of warfare and firearms.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some tweaking of the basic principles of Over the Hills, which we've started looking at just by chucking a few figures on the table, and that seems to be working. So what we want to do in the near future is look at turning Over the Hills into an Ancients game, and I think we're going to go to extremes, Ancients and Renaissance to start off. And then in terms of Forager, what we want to do is look at can we turn that into a fantasy game? And in terms of can we, I think it's not can we, it's a we will turn it into a fantasy game, just to play at the club to start off with as mates. And if it works, then we'll see if there's a wider audience that want to buy into it.
Oh right, so so going off in lots of different directions then. So it's effectively going right. Okay, we've got a decent game engine here. Let's look to see where we can take it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, it's all dependent on if people like ACW and they like the AWI, then that's great, and that'll give us the sort of the empowerment to go off and do the other rules. And we were approached by a firm who said, "Do you want to write for us a Renaissance rule set?" And at first he was like, "Yeah, we'll do that." And then he was like, "Well, why? Why not? Why should we write it for somebody else when we've got this games engine that works that we know?"
There's a comment. There's a comment in I think it's Don Featherton's Skirmish Wargaming, where he says that he thinks he's pretty much got a model of the fighting man through the ages, so why not use it?
Exactly, yeah. It's in that, the feedback is with Over the Hills, people get a feeling of Napoleonic warfare. With other tweaks, you can get a feeling of American Civil War, you can get a feeling of American War of Independence. And with further tweaks, and they're not massive tweaks, we think you can get a flavour of ancient wargaming. But you've got to add more in terms of armour and different weapon types. So there's lots of work to go in there, but it cannot not be done.
Yeah, it can be done. I'm never really sure about games which try to cover 2,000 plus years of warfare, because there's always that you sort of get that DBA effect when people think that they can take a Dark Age army and put it up against a Renaissance army and expect it to be a fair fight. I totally agree with you, Mike. Yeah,
totally
but I think
agree
if you take a mechanic and not be hamstrung by the mechanic, thinking that you have to use it, and just use the parts of the rules that fit into that particular period, and say, okay, this is the Over Hills version for Dark Ages, going up to say 1066.
Yeah, and I think that's that. Then that is the key. It's recognizing that sometimes you have to look at your baby, which is for me and Quinton is Over the Hills, and go, well, that part of our baby don't work or will not work, and you've got to change it. You've got a core mechanic, and I think the core mechanic for Over the Hills, I would strip right back to the fatigue score. But it could be as simple as that actually you actually change the rules that much that all you're left with is that from Over the Hills is that a unit has got a fatigue score, and everything else around it is totally different.
Exactly.
So yeah, and it's being able to say no, we need to chuck that away because it will not work.
Yeah, and I think that would work, and I think you're doing the right thing by splitting out the AWI and the ACW into separate books with different rules, and it'd be a good thing to do a similar thing with the sort of pre-gunpowder period, and as you say, trying to include the familiarity of some of the basic rule mechanics you got in, but not be tied to them. Say, right, okay, this isn't going to work. Let's put something else in there.
Yeah, all day long. Yeah, it's one of those where hopefully, people who know and play Over the Hills will recognise some parts of it within other game systems, and that might be if it's if it's ancient, it is just a unit as a fatigue score, and that's the only part I do recognise of that rule book.
Yeah, because it's a similar thing to what the sort of the Lardies do, because the Lardies games all have a similar feel, and there are some sort of shared mechanics, but Rich always approaches a set of a game as a standalone thing, and almost uses like his sort of menu of mechanics that you can say, okay, we'll try this. That doesn't work. Let's do something else. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's always remember what you're modelling.
Exactly. What we don't want to do is, because we could say buy Over the Hills Napoleonics and try and use it for from 2000 BC to modern day. It's not about what we think is we've got some mechanic. We've got a lot of mechanics in a lot of rule systems that we play that we think will. People will like. We've tried it with Napoleonics and people like it. We're going to try it with ACW and we'll try it with AWI and we think people like it. And we're going to look at other game systems. And we know that, lads down at the club have tried bits and bobs of the sort of scribbled down rules that we've done and gone, yeah, we'll think that'll work.
That'd be really exciting. And it was handy because I've got figures for that, for various ancient periods.
There you go. Yeah. So we thought, let's give it a go. I think it's a goer. It's a not long term future. It's a shortish term future. So we're play testing it as we speak, amongst other stuff. But it's it's nice to have the time to play test as well, isn't it? We honestly think that it's that good that we can do something with it, and if we didn't, we'd park it up.
Yeah, I think it'd work. You've got some nice mechanics in there which could be easily transposed. But obviously, you just think about the model of what you're trying to do.
Exactly, and you're right. Nail on the head is, don't force it. Don't force a rule set into a period because some of it won't work.
Yeah. Lovely, and Fantasy Forger, right?
Yeah, that's my craziness. To be fair.
Well, it's not a crazy idea because I don't think there are many small gang-sized fantasy games out there, really. For the sort of size of Forager, when you got less than a dozen figures each side.
Yeah, it's that's the idea. It will be less than a dozen figures each side, maximum 6 to 10. And all the recognised races are there. A bit of sort of paladin, druid, fighter, cleric, all that sort of stuff, and all the traits and are moulded around that, and you can cast magic and fight, and monster. You can do scenarios with monsters in. I've got that. I mean, the majority of that is already written. I think I wrote some of that before I wrote the original Forager, but the basic principles of it are there, and I think there's a gap where people might go, oh yeah, we'll have a look at that, because it might be nice to fight, my gang of my evil gang of clerics and fighters and wizards against your good gang of dwarf paladins and dwarf clerics and all that sort of thing. Keep some real character from a fantasy perspective at a low figure ratio.
Yeah, because most sort of fantasy games of that sort of ratio do go down the sort of dungeoneering route.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Having something out in the wilds would be a bit different.
Yeah, that's where its USP is. I think it's my gang against your gang, but we're not in a dungeon. I mean, it can be in a dungeon if you wanted to be, but it could be, it could be in some foreign field somewhere.
Mm.
So that's a mid to midterm idea.
Yeah. And of course, luckily, I do have a pile of fantasy figures that I could use.
Yeah, lots and lots by looks.
I have a few.
Yeah, and then a few more.
I don't know. Yes, Lord of the Rings figure, possibly.
Yeah.
I was thinking more. Yeah, I was thinking more of my Everworld figures and.
Of course. Oh, yeah, all those. Yeah. Yes.
I've got many strands of fantasy going on.
Exactly, and everybody has those odd Otherworld and Citadel, Ralph figures that they've got under the bed or in the garage that they could dig out. So they might give those figures a new lease of life.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's looking medium term.
Yes.
So short term coming about, as I say, we're looking at War in the Americas. Both in skirmish level and larger battle level. Is there anything else? He talks a lot about adapting the mechanics and adapting the rules to fit the period, and it's like not one set of mechanics fits everything. You've got to be able to change things and amend it. Can you give us an example of that? Say, for example, how you've done that with the American Civil War, for example, because obviously we were talking earlier about the fact that when you compare that technology-wise to, say, the Napoleonic War, technology has moved on somewhat between those two conflicts. So how do you reflect that in the mechanics?
Well, one of the rule mechanisms that's changed in terms of the ACW game is we've got a rule that in Over the Hills is called the tremulation of arms, and it's about engagement distances. So in Over the Hills, if you are outside of 6 inches of an enemy unit, you can actually move quite easily. You just move. Each unit's got a command base, and you move that command base, and then move the troops around it. As long as no troops move more than their allotted move distances, that's 6 inches within. And what that's about is as units close together, once you get within 6 inches, that moving is more restrictive, i.e. you have to concentrate on the closest enemy unit to you. Now, in the ACW rule set, because of the greater weapon range brought by better weapons, that's extended out to 12 inches. So you're restricted in your movement out to 12 inches rather than 6 inches. And that's a simple mechanic. It just reflects commanders of battalions becoming more wary because they know that the engagement ranges are going to be longer.
Right.
So there's that one there. Then over and above that, a lot of people have talked to us about we like Over the Hills, but it's a D10 system, and we'd rather have a 2D6 system. So this is not particularly anything to do with the American Civil War, but we've introduced a 2D6 system. Which means that in Over the Hills, you have a combat fatigue score or a firing fatigue score, and you have to equal or get less than that. And in Over the Hills, low rolls are good. So all we're doing is replacing that D10 system with a 2D6 system.
Mm-hmm.
So just jumping back into the American War of Independence, I talked about the closeness of the battlefield and being wooded and heavily terrained. One of the things that we've changed the command system there. So in Over the Hills, a army commander has to be within a certain distance of a divisional commander in a certain distance of a brigade commander, and then units within that brigade have to be within a certain distance of the brigade commander, or they are out of command and different things. They will not be able to move. In the AWI system, even units that are in command and out of command, because a commander can't see them and hasn't got that much the control that they want. And there was lots of experiences of autonomy of command, even down to company level. You actually roll for each of your units. even if they're in command or out of command, and depending on what the role is what they do. So if you're in command and you roll a 1 to 3, you will not move, even if you're in command. Whereas you roll 4 to 10 and you're fine. If you're out of command in Over the Hills, you just don't move. In the AWR rule set, 1 to 2 you have to retire, 3 to 6 you can do no move, 7 to 8 you can do 1 move, and 9 to 10 if you're in charge range you can move to combat, close combat. So that's the different ways that we've altered the rule mechanics just to reflect parts of each particular period. And jumping back into the ACW, we've got skirmishes dealt differently in in the Over the Hills, the Napoleonic War game. A unit's got a skirmishing grade. I mean, you don't even have to put skirmishing on the table. The grades are A, B, C, and D. D means that your unit has no skirmishers or really poor skirmishers, whereas A is your unit will have the finest skirmishers that people have ever seen. And 2 units interact when they're not in close combat through their skirmishers, whereas in the ACW rule set, they are particular skirmish figures that actually do have responsibilities around the parent battalion, which is different to Over the Hills. So that's just a couple of different things that flavour the whole Over the Hills mechanic into the 2 separate time periods.
Okay. And obviously from looking then into, as we talked about, with then taking that into complete, you can just expand that into what we're talking about with with ancients and pre-gunpowder, I suppose. I mean, I suppose that takes it to the extreme, doesn't it?
Yeah, the idea around that is where the basic principle is Over the Hills is you have a fatigue score for your unit, and that's the only thing that applies. I mean, in Over the Hills, you have a fatigue score and then you have a skirmish grade, and that is it. So it's simple. For if you're going to take it further back into the ancient period, you would have a fatigue score for the unit, but then the unit would have a weapon, it would have armour, and it would be the interaction of that weapon with the opponent's armour and the opponent's weapon with your armour that could be creating positives and negatives to your fatigue score that then you would roll to hit your enemy. And it's as simple as that. So again, it's applying simple principles to that basic fatigue score around weapons and armour. So that's the idea.
Right. Okay. So as you say, all this is going to kick off in within a couple of weeks of you listening to this episode of the podcast. So
yeah,
we're starting off in April with Over the Hills.
Yeah, starting off in April with Over the Hills. We've got Over Malvern Hill, which is the American Civil War game, and then what used to be called Over Bunker Hill, but is now Rise and Fight Again, which is the American War of Independence war game. And then we've also got All the Hills, which is a scenario booklet, 90-page booklet of 12 scenarios, really in depth. And they're going all together, and people can buy one, all, or bits and bobs.
Cool. And then we move on to May, and May we're looking at Forager 2.
Forager 2, yeah. Forager 2 and the Dragoons and the 95th Rifles, if we decide to go down that route with the Dragoons and the 95th, but definitely Forager 2. That'll be the next thing.
Okay, stupid question. Why did you call it Forager 2 as opposed to a title just going like Forager Wars in the Americas or something like
that? Because we haven't decided. We keep meeting ourselves coming backwards, deciding what it's going to be called. So it's working title is Forager 2, and then we'll have to do some work marketing its real name, which won't be. I don't think it's going to be Forager 2. It might be, something to do with war in the US, or it might be an American term for foraging. I don't know. But we've had some ideas. But Quint came up with the name Forager, so I'm going to leave it to Quint to come up with the name because it's his baby, to come up with Forager 2's real name.
Cool. But all that sort of things is happening in May, and say other than the new miniatures, we should be starting to see all that coming through by the end of the summer. Yeah.
Oh yeah, really easy. Yeah, it's there'll be fast turnaround times. I mean, we had a disappointment on Forager with the cards. That's the cards that go with the miniatures.
Yeah.
The original company that provided those to us let us down basically, and the quality of the product, I may have shown you, Neil, wasn't up to standard. We didn't think so. We delayed on sending the cards out, but they are landing at my house tomorrow, so they'll be out. So everything, although we didn't get some of the cards out with the first wave, everything is we're on time for our original for the original Forager. So good to his word. We'll do the same for the other stuff.
Brilliant. And in the meantime, are you touring the UK shows with the new these new versions of the games, or what are you doing?
We're doing. We were at Hammerhead. We're going to be at Hammerhead. We're at Salute and several others all over the country. Myself and Quint, and we've decided what we're doing is we're going to do a mini ACW over the hills game that people can come along and play in. We'll have a look at the mechanics, and we're also going to do a French Indian Wars Forager again that people can come along, as we did with Forager and as we've done with Over the Hills, and come along, play the game for themselves, and either say I don't like it, or in the main what we've had, it's proved to be people have enjoyed playing it and gone, yeah, we'll buy into that.
Fabulous. I've just put the game bookings forms up for Heroin 2018, so you can go and fill one in.
Brilliant. We're doing. In fact, we are doing it. We are. We
awesome.
Quinton, he actually told me that we. We're definitely doing it. Definitely doing it, Mike. Yes. He's like my bookings manager. He tells me where I have to turn up.
Excellent.
For most people, that's called the wife.
Yeah. I've got one of those as well, so I'm getting double body-headed.
As you said earlier, Adrian, it sounds like you're just a little busy at this moment in time.
Very busy, but it's busy with fun stuff. It's good stuff, enjoyable.
Cool. Thanks for coming on and filling us in with everything that's going on. Hobbsy's been saying about how much he loves Over the Hills. I think Forage is brilliant. I really enjoy that, mate.
Cheers, guys.
And so we wish you all the very best with what happens over the next few weeks. Obviously, we will direct people to the relevant places as Kickstarters kick off and what have you. Watch this space. We'll direct you over. And hopefully we'll catch up with you a bit later in the year and find out how it's all going.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for having me.
That's great, AD. Thank you ever so much, mate. And maybe next time we can actually persuade Quinton to come on as well.
You'll never get him to talk, I'll tell you now. Ever. He likes bossing me. He bosses me around. He says I'm the forward-facing part of Stand 2 Games.
Seems quite happy to talk at shows.
And exactly, that's what I told you. Exactly. You ought to give it a go.
Cool. Well, mate, thanks ever so much again. All the very best, and we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you. Good night.
We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, would you like to support us? There's a couple of ways of doing so. You can become a patron of the show by supporting us on our Patreon page. There you can give regularly every time we produce a show. Alternatively, you may want to give a one-off donation, and you can do that by using PayPal. For more details on both these options, please click on the Donate tab on our website www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk.
So, just how much French Indian War stuff are we all going to buy? Or is anybody actually going to go either AWI or ACW?
I am, but not yet.
Yeah, I am tempted. I'm sort of tempted by the Over the Hills AWI.
What scale would you do? What scale would you do? 15 mil?
Yeah. But a long way down the line.
Mm. So suffice it to say, I am no longer getting rid of my Galloping Major stuff.
Wonder why that is.
Yes, I have. I have several packs of Galloping Major French. The French, the French Canadian militia and Indians and some British infantry and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I think I'll be keeping hold of them.
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
It's somehow sensible to me.
Indeed. Very nice, very interesting.
Mm.
Yeah.
That reminds me something else turned up in the post the other day, which I forgot to confess. And it reminds me, AD was talking in the interview about the fact that they got the Spanish and the Portuguese cacadores done for Forager.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I got mine as well.
Yeah, they're nice.
They're lovely. Cards are fantastic.
Oh, the cards great, yeah. So you got the cards. So I got the cards for all factions, and the miniatures for the miniatures for the Spanish and the miniatures for the cacadores. Oh, and they are superb. I mean, the cacadores especially we hadn't seen at all, and they've done a really nice job on those, aren't they? They are really cool. Well impressive.
Mm. Good old Aid.
Thank you, Aid.
Yeah.
Anyway, so looking forward to Forager 2 and everything else coming out for that. And something else to put our money into over the next, before UK Games Expo. Oh, there's too much stuff going on. Oh no.
I've got some really, really bad news for you on that score.
What's that then?
If you're planning on doing, Peninsula in 28.
Yeah.
You know those lovely folks at Empires at War who brought out that range of 15 and 28 mil Spanish stuff?
Yes.
Yes. I've been teasing them for about 6 months that no Spanish or Italian scene is complete without a freaking huge monastery.
Oh, yeah.
So they've just announced the monastery library and the monastery dormitory.
Are they big?
Well, the library is 2 stories and 3 windows by 3 windows wide, so it's quite large. The dormitory is even bigger than 2 stories, and they look really, really, really nice. So yeah, if you are planning on doing anything Spanish and you haven't already nailed your colours to any of the other people who make nice Spanish scenery, the Empires at War Monastery is looking a bit good. I eagerly await the rest of the buildings in the series.
That could prove to be one big and expensive monastery.
Actually, the buildings are kicking in at 20 quid each, pre-painted in 20 mil.
Really? Wow.
Yep. And then, of course, you'll need a mat to put it on.
Oh, yeah, a good Peninsula mat.
Oh, now I'm currently chatting with them. There's a bunch in the States called Killing Fields.
Oh, yes.
Whose maxim is every warmer gamer deserves to play on sexy terrain. And they basically do teddy bear fur mats. And they do look very, very nice indeed. And apparently they are getting a UK distributor later in the year. And I've just asked them whether they're doing a sort of parched Mediterranean look mat. More when I have it. And they're also just started doing them with much shorter tufts for smaller scales or better trimmed grass as well. And they are rather nice. That's killingfieldsterrain.com.
Cool.
So yeah, if you're doing Peninsula, the world is starting to become your oyster.
And Dabidozi.
Excellent stuff indeed.
I do have one tiny last little thing I just spotted. For those of us who backed Joan of Arc, of which I'm not one,
Oh, yeah.
literally popped up today while I was looking at a different thing on the same site. The Dable Brothers Publishing have just reached an agreement with Mythic Games to publish comics based on Time of Legend Joan of Arc.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. My one gripe, and it's a very small one because the sample art looks bleeding gorgeous, is they have gone for the shaped boob armor. Which does mean that the lady's cleavage becomes an instant blade magnet.
Oh, well.
But other than that, the artwork looks stunning. And given I'm a sucker for comics with strong heroines in, I may well buy those.
Well, that reminds me, I've got to pay for a dragon next month.
I've got to do a pledge manager for Annie because her pledge manager's just coming out.
Oh, yes.
Yep,
Yes.
Yeah,
Cool.
as soon as you get your personalised link out, it's pledge manager time for free as well. Yummy, yummy, yummy.
Cool. Oh, something else Dave bought. Hello,
This is
Dave.
gonna be a recurring theme.
Yeah. I wonder if he'll be talking to me at work the day after he's listened to this.
Probably not.
Probably not.
You can just blame me, it's all right.
Well, I usually do.
Yeah, blame us. I'll back abroad.
Cool. Right, on that note, guys, I think it's about time we got out of here. So all that remains to be said is, we hope you've enjoyed the show. We hope you found the interview useful and you've enjoyed, as we've taken a tour around our hobby for the last few weeks. Thank you for joining me.
Please ignore the dust.
Please ignore the dust, indeed. Yes. Yes, bring your respirator with you next time round.
Don't. I'm hacking up a long old day today.
Yeah, thank you for that mental image, Mr. Whittaker. As you leave us, thank
You're
you to our resident bard with a bard with almost a permanent coughing impairment.
He doesn't do the singing voice any good, I'll tell you. But
Thank you for joining us, sir. Thank you once again to our resident Welsh wizard extraordinaire, Mr. Hobbs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Neil. What are you after?
And finally, thank you one and all for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Happy gaming, and we will speak to you in a couple of weeks.
bye-bye and roll good dice. And buy bags from Devs to put them in.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media. And here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.